Hello everyone, let's continue the session on C language. In today's video, we'll be discussing about data types in C. Now C has got a lot of different data types. The major categories of data types in C language are, number one, it's called primitive data types. And number two, it's called derived data types. Number three, it's called user defined data types. Yeah, so these three are the classification of data types in C language. Now, under primitive, that is where you can have your known data types such as character, integer, float, and double comes under. Okay, the four major data types which everybody knows, and the order which I've specified, which is character, integer, float, and double, is because of a reason based upon their sizes. And you very well know the size of a character variable is 1 byte, an integer is 2 byte, and float is 4 byte, and double is 8 byte. So it is basically 1, 2, 4, and 8. And 1 is for character, 2 is for integer, 4 is for float, and 8 is for double. Okay. Now let's create a variable for each and every data type and let's confirm it. So let's getting back to our coding window. Let's start our first file for today. And let us save this as datatypes.c, the extension for C language. And starting off with our header files, standard input output.h, and our main function, which returns an integer value. Let's create a variable for each and every data type. So let's start with character C, and an integer A, and a float F, and a double say D. Okay. Now let's print the size of each and every variable. Printf character is equal to %d, comma, size of C. Okay. Now this will be printing it as char equal to, and that %d will be replaced with the size of C value. You get it? Good. And in the very next line, I want a same or a similar line, which rather prints the size of integer. So I'll say /n, which is for the new line character, and int will print the size of integer, and followed by size of a, where a is your integer variable. Good with this? Let's add the next two more lines. Okay. So let's say float, and the last one is going to be double, and their corresponding variables. Okay, this is size of D, and this is going to be size of F. I'm going to save this file, and let us compile this file now with the command gcc space the file name datatypes.c -o, and name this as data types, which will be the file name for our object file. I hope this is clear. Let's proceed. Now the compilation is pretty much successful. Good. Now let's run the file. Datatypes.exe. I'm running this file. Now have a look at this. What are we getting here? Character is 1, integer is 4, float is 4, and double is 8. If you remember, I would have mentioned the size of integer variable as 2 bytes earlier. You remember it? And when you search across the internet, or when you go through any of the books which is written for the syntax of C language, the most common term you can come across is size of integer is always 2 bytes. Okay. Now, why is there a difference in the current compiler which I'm running right now? Okay. Now, to answer this question, yes, now we have to learn something more called as modifiers. Okay. So we are calling it as modifiers. Okay. Now the types of modifiers based upon sign. Okay, the sign modifiers. Okay, there are two major sign modifiers which are called as unsigned and signed. So these two are the modifiers for sign. That is, unsigned means it includes only positive values, and signed means it includes both positive and negative. Signed is only plus, where unsigned is both plus and minus. Yeah, are you clear? Unsigned is only plus, and signed is both plus and minus. This is based upon the sign modifier. Okay, and there is one more type of modifier called size modifier. Okay, the size modifiers, it is pretty much simple. It is called as short or long. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now, in order to declare a variable, any variable for that matter, it could be character, integer, float, or double. Yes, you obviously need any one of the sign modifier and any one of the size modifier. Okay, that is the way you have to declare it as size modifier. You have to have any one of the size modifier, and before that, you should have any one of the sign modifier. So sign modifier space size modifier space data type space the variable name. Yes. Are we clear with this format structure? The sign modifier, size modifier, data type, and then the variable name. Okay. Now the common types which we can see or which we have declared in our programs earlier or any common programs over the internet, you could have seen something like unsigned, short or long, int a. Now this is a pretty perfect example for a complete variable declaration where you have your sign modifier, your size modifier, and then your data type, and then your variable name. Okay, but this is not the way which we declare in most of our programs. Whenever we write a program, we don't tend to use most of the sign modifier as well as the size modifier. Rather, we just say int a or int b or int c or something of that sort. You understand this? Yes, good. Now, in that case, right, what does the compiler do if size modifier and sign modifier are not provided? Yeah, what is the compiler does it assume? Now, this is when we need to know something about the types of compilers. Okay. Now, in C language, we have got a lot of different compilers, starting from the inception of C, when we started working with C programming back in 1980s when it was created. Yeah, C language has got a basic primitive compiler called as Borland C compiler. Now, this is a name which many of us would have come across, the Borland C compiler. And later on, when we were in a college days or when we studied C language for the very first time, you would have come across a blue screen window for programming. Yes, and that compiler is called as your Turbo C compiler. We'll call it as, in short, it is called as TC. Yeah. And now the present trend right now, what we are using is called as a GCC compiler. And this GCC compiler is embedded into many of the softwares which we use to compile and execute the codes. For example, code blocks, DevC++, or any of the online platforms, online compilers. It could be your online GDB or any online platform like Tutorial Spawn. It could be anything. Now, all these platforms or all these websites, they use this GCC compiler, and there are a lot of different versions of it. And the present version which we are using, I would have showed you, it is the GCC version of 10. Yeah, I hope this is clear. In that context, okay, in that context, the most commonly used C compilers are by any of us is it could be either a Turbo C compiler, that is TC, or it could be a GCC compiler. Okay, so these two are the common compilers which we have used. Yeah. Yes. Now, in that place, keeping this in mind, okay, how these two compilers individually handle these scenarios of sign modifier and size modifier. Okay, in Turbo C compiler, if no sign modifier is provided, okay, I'm not providing a size modifier, sign modifier. Rather, I'm going to just say int n, a common variable. Now, the way this line, okay, this particular line is treated in a Turbo C compiler is nothing but it defaults take this as signed variable. Okay, the default value is signed, and it default takes it as short, and it calls as int a. Okay, in GCC, it again default treat this as signed variable for a sign modifier, but when it comes to size modifier, it treats this as long int a. Okay, whereas the size of short integer variable is 2 and the size of long integer variable is 4, and that is where we have a difference in our GCC compiler. When I say this as int, here you could see it is printing the size of 4, Reason because this int is not treated as integer, it is treated as long integer. Okay. Now to understand this even more better, okay, I'm going to use the short integer a, long integer n. I'm going to have two different variables. Okay. And in the place of printing the integer, I'm not going to just print the integer. I'm going to add another line, a and n. And in the place of first position, I'm printing it as short integer. And next one, I'm printing it as long integer. Now I'll compile it. I'll run it for one more time. Now you could see the size of short integer is 2 and size of a long integer is 4 and float is 4, double is 8, it's as usual. Okay. And this short and long can be included for all the other data types as well, for character, for double, for float, and for all the others. Okay. And in some cases, in integers, we also tend to use something called as long integers, where the size of long integer is 4. And when you have an even more extended space, okay, I'm calling another variable called m, which is of type long. So I have to declare that variable also. So I'm saying long int m. This line can also be alias written as long m without the need of an int. Okay, this is also accepted because our compiler reads the line as same as it was earlier. I've cleared the screen, I'm compiling it, and I'm running it again. Now you could see the size of long integer is 4, size of long integer is 8, and it is hence on and henceforth. Okay. I hope this is pretty much clear about the primitive data types and the sign modifiers. Yes.